At 22, I thought my biggest flex was buying my dream car, a cherry red sports coupe worth $80,000. It was sleek, powerful, and mine. But the real shock came not from the speed, but from my parents. While I was away for work, they sold it without even asking me, and handed the cash to my sister so she could buy designer bags. Growing up in Austin, Texas, our house looked like the picture of middle-class comfort. My parents, Laura and Dennis, always liked to remind neighbors how tight-knit we were. Mom hosted backyard barbecues with homemade peach cobbler, Dad volunteered as a soccer coach, and my younger sister, Rachel, played the role of the golden child, the one everyone adored. Evan, was the oldest. At first, life felt fair. We had family movie nights on Fridays, long road trips in Dad's old pickup, and endless photo albums documenting Rachel's dance recitals and my baseball games. My grandparents used to say we were a family that laughed loud and forgave quick. I believed them. But cracks were always there if you looked closely enough. Mom doted on Rachel in a way she never did with me. When Rachel got straight A's in middle school, Mom put her report card on the fridge for weeks. When I got a B+ in physics after staying up nights to study, Dad only muttered, "Could have done better." Still, I told myself it was normal. Parents just had favorites sometimes. I convinced myself that if I worked hard enough, they'd see me the same way. By high school, those cracks widened. Rachel's birthdays were extravagant affairs, candy buffets, rented venues, even a DJ one year. Mine were pizza at home, with a store-bought cake. Rachel got an iPhone at 13. I got my first smartphone at 17, after saving half the money myself from a part-time job. But I brushed it off. I told myself, Rachel's younger, she needs more attention. Or Mom just understands her better. I carried that reasoning into adulthood, thinking if I kept my head down and worked harder, one day I'd earn the same pride and affection. College changed everything for me. I wasn't a genius like Rachel, but I was relentless. I studied computer engineering, juggling 2 part-time jobs, one at a tech repair shop, the other tutoring freshmen. I learned early that if I wanted anything, I had to fund it myself. And in a way, that gave me freedom. It took me nearly 5 years, but by the time I graduated, I had 0 debt. My parents didn't contribute a cent, though they bragged to neighbors about how independent I was. That was my first real taste of independence, realizing that my effort, not their approval, built my future. Landing my first full-time job at a software startup felt like the culmination of every sleepless night, every double shift. The paycheck wasn't huge, but I lived frugally, investing what I could and saving everything else. And then came the dream I'd been working toward since I was 16, my own sports car. It wasn't just any car. It was a cherry red, limited edition coupe I'd drooled over in magazines for years. Sleek lines, roaring engine, the kind of vehicle that turned heads at stoplights. I still remember the test drive. My hands shaking as I gripped the wheel, my heart pounding as the engine growled to life. For once, something wasn't hand-me-down or second best. It was mine, fully mine, bought with my sweat and sacrifice. When I rolled it into our driveway for the first time, Rachel squealed, "Oh my God, Evan, it's gorgeous." She snapped pictures, posting them on Instagram with captions like, "My brother's living the dream." Mom and Dad's reactions were muted. Dad whistled low but said, "Hope you're not wasting all your money on flash." Mom added, "Well, I guess it's nice, but don't you think that's a bit impractical? Rachel could have used that money for grad school." Her words stung, but I brushed them off. For once, Rachel defended me, rolling her eyes. "Mom, it's his money. Let him enjoy it." Still, I felt the subtle disapproval simmering under their smiles. But the truth? I didn't care. Driving that car on quiet Texas highways at night, windows down, music blasting, felt like freedom incarnate. I wasn't the overlooked son, the second best, the afterthought. I was Evan, 22, independent, and finally reaping the rewards of years of sacrifice. Life seemed steady. Work was challenging but rewarding. My car was my joy. Rachel was finishing her graduate program, posting pictures of coffee shops and designer clothes. My parents still nitpicked me, but I told myself that didn't matter anymore. I had carved out a space in life that was mine and mine alone. What I didn't know was that beneath that fragile sense of stability, resentment and entitlement were building like storm clouds. My parents and Rachel saw my independence not as something to respect, but as something to exploit. And the very car that symbolized my freedom would become the P*, and they used to betray me. The first warning sign didn't come as a crash, but as a whisper. It started a few weeks after I'd bought the car. I'd just gotten home from a long day at the startup, exhausted, when I found Rachel in the driveway snapping more photos of the coupe. She was dressed in a designer blouse, Another gift from Mom, no doubt, and had draped her purse on the hood like it was part of the car's aesthetic. "Don't scratch it," I warned lightly, tossing my backpack over my shoulder. She rolled her eyes. "Relax, Evan. You act like it's a museum piece. Anyway, you should thank me. I just boosted your Insta by tagging you. Everyone's obsessed with your car." At the time, I laughed it off, but something in her tone stuck with me, like the car wasn't mine, but an accessory she could flaunt. That same week, Mom made a pointed comment at dinner. She was spooning mashed potatoes onto Rachel's plate, the way she always did, when she glanced at me and said, "I hope you don't expect to keep that car forever. Luxury doesn't last. It's better to invest in something useful." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like Rachel's career," she said without missing a beat. "She needs opportunities, connections, a wardrobe that reflects professionalism. You're doing fine, Evan, but your sister, she's our future." The room went quiet. Rachel smirked into her glass of water, clearly enjoying the implied favoritism. Dad cleared his throat, muttering, "Your mom just means we have to be practical." I forced a laugh, but inside my chest tightened. Practical? I had worked for years to afford that car. Practical was me grinding through double shifts in college while Rachel studied abroad in Paris on my parents' dime. It was the first time I realized they didn't just disapprove of my purchase, they resented it. A few days later, Rachel asked outright if she could borrow the car to impress some friends. "Absolutely not," I said, grabbing my keys off the counter before she could snatch them. Her lips curled into a pout. "God, you're so selfish. You don't even let me sit in it." "Because it's an $80,000 car, Rachel. Not a toy." She stormed off, muttering something about me being stingy. I thought that was the end of it, but the subtle digs kept piling up. At one point, Dad mentioned offhand, "Cars depreciate fast, son. If you ever need help liquidating it, let me know." His words sent a chill down my spine. "Liquidating?" I repeated, half laughing. "Dad, it's not an investment property. It's my car." But the way he looked at me, calculating, almost hungry, set alarm bells ringing in my head. Rachel's friends weren't much better. One evening, I overheard her on the phone bragging, "Yeah, my family's car is insane. We're probably going to flip it soon and get something even better. My brother doesn't need it anyway." I froze in the hallway. Our family's car? When I confronted her, she shrugged. "What's the difference? You wouldn't even have it without Mom and Dad raising you. Everything we have is family property." That was the first time I realized Rachel, and maybe my parents too, didn't view my car as mine. They saw it as communal. Something to redistribute as they saw fit. It all came to a head one night when I caught Rachel sneaking into the garage with a friend. She had my spare keys in her hand. "Are you insane?" I snapped, grabbing them before she could climb in. Her friend looked embarrassed and bolted, but Rachel glared at me like I'd ruined her life. "You can't keep hoarding everything, Evan. Just because you got lucky doesn't mean you deserve it more than me." I wanted to scream, to remind her of the years I'd spent hustling, the debt-free degree I'd clawed out of the dirt, the double jobs, the sacrifices. But my throat locked. Because deep down, I knew she wasn't acting alone. My parents had planted these seeds, the entitlement, the belief that Rachel's wants outweighed my rights. And as much as I tried to ignore it, the first warning bell was loud and clear. They were circling. What I didn't know then was just how far they were willing to go. The tension in our house thickened like Texas humidity, sticky, heavy, and impossible to ignore. What started as casual comments about my car soon became constant pressure, whispered jabs turning into outright demands. At first, it was Rachel pushing harder. She'd stand in the garage staring at the coupe like it was a showroom model meant for her. "Evan, I have a networking mixer next week," she'd whine. "Do you have any idea how much impression a car like this could make? I'd look so professional." I kept repeating the same words, "It's not yours. End of discussion." But she wouldn't let it go. One night she cornered me in the kitchen. "You know I need this more than you. You're just wasting it on grocery runs and late-night drives. I could turn it into an opportunity." I laughed bitterly. "Rachel, it's a car, not a career move." She narrowed her eyes, muttering, "You'll see. Mom and Dad understand." And that's when the isolation began. Mom started slipping comments into every conversation. If I came home late, she'd greet me with, "Out driving your toy again while Rachel studies? Maybe you should think about priorities." If I bought groceries, she'd glance at my bags and say, "Funny how you can splurge on snacks but not help Rachel with professional clothes." Dad was no better. He'd watch me polishing the coupe on weekends and sigh dramatically. You know, if you invested the money you're sinking into that thing, you could be planning for a future. Rachel's trying to build hers. Don't you want to see her succeed? Every word was a guilt trip, designed to make me feel selfish for enjoying something I had earned. The worst part, Rachel played along perfectly. She acted like the wounded victim, sighing about how hard it was to compete with me, crying to Mom about how I didn't support her dreams. Soon, family dinners turned into tribunals where I was the defendant and Rachel the star witness. Evan, don't you think you could at least let your sister use the car occasionally? Mom pressed one evening. No, I said flatly. Rachel's eyes welled with fake tears. See? He doesn't care about me at all. I pushed my chair back, appetite gone. It's not about you, Rachel. It's my car. Why is this so hard to understand? But they didn't want to understand. They wanted to wear me down. The pressure spread beyond the house. Rachel started telling mutual friends and extended family that I was hoarding wealth. At a cousin's barbecue, someone joked, "Hey, Evan, when are you letting Rachel take that sweet ride for a spin?" I forced a laugh, but my stomach twisted. The narrative was spreading. I was selfish, she was deserving. Then came the financial sabotage. One Friday, I checked my shared family phone plan and realized Mom had accidentally switched the billing to my account. When I confronted her, she waved it off. "You make more money now, honey. It's only fair." Rachel chimed in sweetly. "Besides, you don't need that car and all those expenses. You could help family more." It wasn't about fairness. It was about control. The isolation hit hardest when my best friend, Marcus, confronted me after hearing Rachel's version of events. "Dude, why won't you help her out? You've got an $80,000 car, she's just trying to get started." I nearly exploded. "Marcus, I worked for years for that car. She hasn't worked a single real job in her life." But even as I said it, I could see doubt in his eyes. Rachel's lies were poisoning everything. Nights became the hardest. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, every creak in the house making me wonder if someone was in the garage. Twice I found smudges on the coupe's handles, fingerprints that weren't mine. Once, I walked in to see Rachel sitting in the driver's seat, scrolling her phone like she owned it. "What are you doing?" I snapped. She smiled coolly. "Just imagining what it's like to have something that actually matters." My hands shook with rage as I ordered her out. But deep down, fear gnawed at me. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. It was escalation. The pressure was relentless, the guilt suffocating. Every conversation ended with me being painted as selfish. Every family moment turned into a battle over what I owed. My sanctuary, the car, the symbol of my independence, was no longer safe. And though I didn't want to admit it, I felt cornered. Outnumbered in my own family. The whispers had become shouts. The cracks in our tight-knit family had become chasms. And I knew, sooner or later, something would break. It happened on a Thursday, the day my world tilted. I'd just come back from a brutal week at work, where a client project had gone sideways, and all I wanted was to decompress with a late-night drive. I swung into the garage, only to find the space empty. The coupe, my car, my pride, was gone. For a second, I thought I'd lost my mind. I ran outside, scanning the driveway, the street. Nothing. Just silence, broken by the faint hum of crickets. Heart hammering, I stormed inside. Rachel was on the couch scrolling her phone, smirking like she'd been waiting for me. "Where's my car?" I demanded. She didn't even flinch. "Relax. Mom and Dad handled it. They said it was for the best." The words didn't compute. Handled it. What the hell does that mean? Mom walked in from the kitchen, her expression infuriatingly calm. "We sold it, Evan. It was the right decision." I felt my stomach drop, my chest hollowing out. "You what? That car was mine. You had no right." Dad cut me off, his voice stern. "We had every right. You live under our roof, and that car was a waste. Rachel needed the money for things that actually matter." I stared at them, shaking. "You sold my $80,000 car. For what?" Rachel grinned, holding up her phone to show me glossy photos of designer shopping bags stacked in the back of an Uber. "For me," she said sweetly. "Louis Vuitton, Prada, Chanel. Investments in my future." The rage that exploded inside me was indescribable. My vision blurred, my hands balled into fists. "You sold my car for purses?" Mom scoffed. Don't be dramatic. Rachel needs to present herself well if she's going to get ahead. Clothes, accessories, confidence, that's worth more than some flashy toy you didn't need. I couldn't breathe. Every hour I'd spent working double shifts, every night I'd skipped meals to save a few dollars, every sacrifice I'd made to buy that car, erased, stolen, pawned off for my sister's vanity. I shouted until my throat burned. I told them they were thieves, manipulators, abusers. Rachel just sat there, smug, stroking one of her new bags like it was a trophy. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Enough. You should be grateful we invested in your sister. She's the future of this family. You've always been selfish, Evan. This is what responsibility looks like. I stormed into the garage, half expecting it to be some sick prank, but the space was still empty. The reality hit me like a punch. My car was gone, and so was every piece of security it had given me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying every sacrifice, every insult, every family obligation they'd thrown at me. My entire life, I'd convinced myself I was strong enough to endure their favoritism, their manipulations. But this was theft. A violation. Proof that to them, I was nothing more than a resource to exploit. The breaking point wasn't just losing the car. It was realizing I couldn't trust my own family. The next morning, I confronted them again, demanding answers. Where's the money? Show me the bill of sale. Who bought it? Dad waved me off. It's handled. Don't worry about the details. Rachel chimed in, twirling her hair. Honestly, Evan, you should thank me. You never looked good in that car anyway. People said it was too much for you. Now at least it went to something useful. Something snapped in me then. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. They thought they'd broken me by taking the car, by humiliating me, by reminding me of my place. But instead, they lit a fire. I swore, silently and fiercely, that I would get justice. I would expose them for what they were. Selfish, manipulative thieves who would sacrifice their own son for designer labels. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of standing alone. The breaking point had passed. Now it was time to fight back. I woke up the morning after the betrayal with a strange clarity. The grief and fury were still there, raw and jagged, but beneath them pulsed something sharper, resolve. If my parents and Rachel thought I'd just swallow this, they didn't know me at all. The first thing I did was dig for evidence. They thought I'd let the details slide, but I wasn't about to take their vague answers as truth. I started with the garage, empty except for Rachel's shoe scuff marks and a faint smell of leather cleaner. My car wasn't there, but the paperwork trail had to exist. I searched Dad's study, rifling through drawers until I found a thin folder shoved behind a stack of old tax forms. Inside, the bill of sale. The buyer was a used luxury dealer in Dallas. My jaw clenched. They hadn't even bothered to hide it well. Then came the real gut punch, a bank statement tucked inside. $64,500 wired directly into Mom's account. Not mine. Not even for the family. Straight into hers. And within 48 hours, most of it was gone. Withdrawn in chunks, then funneled into Rachel's credit card bills and high-end boutique charges. It wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated theft. I snapped photos of everything and emailed them to myself, backing them up in 3 different cloud accounts. If they thought I'd let this disappear, they were wrong. Next, I needed allies. I reached out to Marcus, swallowing my pride after our earlier fight. I laid out the evidence, every detail, every receipt. His jaw dropped as he scrolled through the screenshots. Dude, this is insane. They sold your car and blew it on handbags. Yes, I said tightly. And now we're going to make them pay. Marcus connected me with his cousin, Nina, a paralegal. She reviewed the documents and whistled low. They can spin family drama all they want, but selling someone's property without consent? That's fraud. Evan, you have a solid case here. I felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, someone outside my family saw the truth. But I wasn't content with legal paperwork alone. They'd humiliated me publicly, painting me as selfish. I wanted the world to see who they really were. So I began building a case not just in court, but in the court of public opinion. With Marcus's help, I gathered every photo Rachel had posted flaunting her new purchases. Bags, shoes, accessories. She couldn't resist showing off. Then I paired those with screenshots of the sale documents, crafting a timeline. The day they sold my car, the days Rachel paraded her new investments. It was damning. Meanwhile, I secretly met with the dealership in Dallas, posing as an interested buyer. The salesman, eager for commission, bragged about how he'd gotten the coupe for a steal from a family desperate to unload it. I recorded everything on my phone, his voice confirming the shady deal. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. By the time I returned home, I wasn't just angry. I was armed. The next step was timing. If I confronted them too soon, they'd find a way to spin it, to gaslight me into silence like they always had. But if I waited, if I let the tension build, I could hit them where it hurt most, their image. So I played along. At dinner, I smiled tightly when Rachel bragged about her networking. When Mom hinted about me contributing to family expenses, I bit my tongue. When Dad lectured me about responsibility, I nodded like a dutiful son. They thought they'd won. But beneath the calm, I was planning. I scheduled a meeting with Nina to file an official complaint. She promised to walk me through small claims court if necessary, but given the value of the car, we'd likely need a full civil case. I also prepped a folder of evidence for social media, screenshots, receipts, the dealership recording. I wasn't naive. Going public would burn every bridge with my family. But those bridges were already ash. The final straw came when Rachel pranced into the kitchen waving a new Chanel bag. "You should be grateful, Evan," she cooed. "Your sacrifice is helping me become someone important." I met her eyes and smiled coldly. "You're right, Rachel. This is just the beginning." She smirked, thinking she'd won again. But I wasn't the one being played anymore. The counterstrike was in motion. And soon, the world would know the truth. The showdown came faster than I'd planned. It was Rachel's idea, of course, a celebration dinner, to show off her new designer haul to family friends. Mom decorated the dining room with candles, Dad grilled steaks in the backyard, and Rachel strutted around in her latest purchases like she was hosting a fashion show. To them, it was a victory lap. To me, it was the perfect stage. The guests arrived. Neighbors, distant cousins, Dad's golf buddies. Everyone oot and awed over Rachel's bags, laughing at her stories about exclusive shopping trips. I stayed quiet at first, sipping water, waiting for the right moment. When the laughter peaked, I cleared my throat. "Funny story about those bags," I said, loud enough to silence the chatter. "Want to know how they were really paid for?" Mom's *T me a warning look. "Evan, not now." "No, Mom," I cut in. "Now is perfect." I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the Bluetooth speaker Dad always bragged about. The room hushed as I played the recording of the Dallas car dealer's voice. "Yeah, got the coupe for cheap. Family was desperate to sell it. Barely asked questions. Guess the kid didn't need it." The words hung heavy in the air. Gasps rippled through the guests. My aunt set down her wine glass with a clink. Rachel's face went pale. Before anyone could speak, I swiped to the next file, the bank statement. Projected onto the TV via screen share, it lit up the room. $64,500 wired into Mom's account, followed by transactions at Louis Vuitton, Prada, Chanel. "Recognize those charges?" I asked, turning to Rachel. "Because they match the bags you're parading right now." Rachel stammered. "Teach, that's private. Not when it's theft," I snapped. "That money came from selling my car. My property. Without my consent." Murmurs erupted. Dad stood, face red. "Enough of this circus. Evan, you're embarrassing the family." I held up the signed bill of sale. "No, Dad. You embarrassed the family. You forged my consent. That's fraud. I have every receipt, every document, and witnesses to prove it." The room was electric. Guests whispered, phones already out, recording. Mom's lips trembled as she tried to regain control. "Sweetheart, we only did it for your own good. You were being reckless." "Reckless?" I barked. "Working 2 jobs to pay for college? Saving every dollar to buy something I loved? That's not reckless. That's responsibility. What you did, stealing from your own son to fund Rachel's vanity, that's reckless." Rachel burst into tears, mascara streaking her face. "You don't understand. I needed those bags. They'll help me network." I laughed bitterly. "You needed handbags worth more than a year's tuition? Spare me." The room buzzed with judgment, eyes turning cold on Rachel, on Mom, on Dad. That's when I dropped the final bomb. "By the way, I've already filed a complaint with the county. Fraud, theft, and conversion of property. You'll be hearing from a judge soon." Mom gasped. Dad's fists clenched. Rachel wailed. And the guests? They saw the truth. The perfect family image crumbled before their eyes. Neighbors shook their heads in disgust. Dad's golf buddies quietly slipped out the door. My aunt muttered, "Disgraceful," as she collected her coat. For once, the spotlight wasn't on Rachel's curated perfection. It was on their betrayal. The night ended in chaos. Dad tried to yank the TV cord out of the wall. Mom begged me to reconsider. Rachel ran upstairs sobbing, clutching her precious bags like lifelines. But I didn't waver. I stood in that storm, calm and unshaken. Because this time, the truth was on my side. The final confrontation had arrived, and I wasn't the one left broken. The days after the confrontation felt surreal, like I was walking through the wreckage of a storm. Except this storm wasn't made of wind or rain, it was betrayal, finally exposed. Words spread faster than I imagined. Videos from the dinner circulated around our community within hours. Clips of me presenting the evidence, the dealer's recording, the bank statements, all of it was shared, replayed, dissected. People who once praised my parents for being devoted now whispered about greed, favoritism, and theft. My phone buzzed non-stop. Some messages were supportive. "Good for you, Evan. Took guts to stand up." Others were from extended family, half angry, half embarrassed. "You should have kept it private." But I didn't regret it. For once, the truth was undeniable. Legally, things moved just as quickly. Nina, the paralegal, helped me file the civil claim. The court didn't waste time reviewing the evidence. The forged bill of sale, the bank statements, the dealership testimony, it all painted a damning picture. My parents tried to argue it was a family matter, but the judge disagreed. Within weeks, I was awarded compensation equal to the car's value plus damages. Rachel's designer treasures didn't last long. Bailiffs came knocking, repossessing the very bags she'd flaunted to pay part of the judgment. Watching her scream and sob as they carried away her investments was both painful and strangely poetic. For once, consequences reached her doorstep. As for my parents, the fallout was brutal. Dad's golf buddies cut ties, not wanting to be associated with a fraud scandal. Mom's reputation in her church circle crumbled. Even her closest friends turned cold. They'd always cared more about appearances than relationships, and now they had neither. I wish I could say I felt triumph. But honestly, mostly I felt free. Free from the constant pressure to sacrifice for Rachel. Free from the guilt trips and manipulations. Free from the idea that family loyalty meant letting myself be exploited. It wasn't easy. I moved out permanently, finding a small apartment downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every corner, every piece of furniture, was chosen by me, not stolen or dictated by someone else. The first time I parked my replacement car, not as flashy, but still a symbol of independence, I sat behind the wheel and breathed deep, finally feeling peace. Rachel avoided me entirely. She sent one text, "I hope you're happy, you ruined my life," which I deleted without responding. My parents tried occasional calls, half-hearted apologies laced with excuses. "We just wanted to help Rachel succeed. You'll understand when you have kids." But I didn't answer. Because apologies without accountability are just noise. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. Marcus stood by me, helping me channel the chaos into something constructive. We started a small side project, a blog about financial independence, where I wrote anonymously about saving, hustling, and protecting what's yours. To my surprise, it grew quickly, resonating with others who'd been burned by family obligations. In time, that blog turned into speaking gigs, then a consulting side business. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very betrayal meant to break me became the foundation for something stronger. Late at night, I'd sometimes think back to the car, the sleek lines, the roar of the engine, the freedom of the open road. Losing it hurt. But what hurt more was realizing how little my family valued me compared to material things. And yet, maybe that pain was necessary. It forced me to see the truth I'd been denying for years. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who respects you, supports you, and celebrates your victories without trying to steal them. Standing in my apartment, surrounded by quiet and independence, I whispered to myself, "They sold my car, but they didn't sell me." I wasn't broken. I was stronger. And from here on out, no one, not even my family, would dictate my worth again.